Hello, Lacey here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Tarot by the Book. If you are new to this series, Tarot by the Book is a series I do on my channel where I will give us the collective, a 3-card week ahead reading using my intuition and a randomly chosen tarot deck of cards. And then once I have finished giving the intuitive reading, I also like to share with you the meanings of the same cards from the guidebook that the creator accompanies the tarot deck. So I always choose these randomly, and when I'm feeling particularly lazy, I just whine at Peggy and ask her to come into my room and pick a random deck off the wall because she doesn't know which decks are in which bag. So she'll just randomly select one, and that's the one we'll do. So today she selected the Little Monsters Tarot, which is actually in this bag that I've had forever that Peggy made me. This was back when there was occasionally beads showing up on the cord. So this has been kicking around for a bit. But the deck itself actually has existed independently in a number of formats. I believe that when it first came out, the Little Monsters Tarot was sold in an oval shape. Mine is now in an oval shape. And then when it was released for sale on Etsy, for the longest time it was a small format deck, and they are rectangular cards. But when I got mine, it was sold in a larger rectangular size. And I hand trimmed my card into these ovals because the original deck was a rectangle and there was actually black drawn ovals, like egg shapes, on the cards, and the artwork was within. So I just followed those lines and trimmed to the best of my ability, so my cards are actually oval shaped. The Little Monsters Tarot is a very whimsical and playful deck. It reminds me of the story Where the Wild Things Are. I don't know if that was its intent, but that's sort of the vibe I get from this deck. And it's one of the few black and white decks that I really thoroughly enjoy. There is a part of me that has considered potentially trying to color this deck or bits of this deck at some point, and I may still do that. But I just really enjoy the artwork. There's something very wild about it. As I kind of have mentioned, I love this Four of Cups so much. It's such a beautiful card. So yeah, I did cut it into ovals and I did edge it, and some of the edging did bleed a little bit, but it just adds to the charm of this deck. I don't know why it doesn't make me twitchy, but it really doesn't. So it's a very rustic feeling deck for me, and I think the shape is super fun. And the guidebook that comes along with this deck, I think I actually had to order it separately, but it is well worth it. It's a really beautifully done guidebook. It has really nice paper, if such things matter to you, and the cover is that really gorgeous rose petal finish. It's really, really beautiful. So we are going to dive into a week ahead reading. And that's how I like to start these. So if you would like a reading for your week ahead, then just simply focus on your week ahead as I shuffle the cards. If you would like a reading on a particular subject matter, then concentrate on that subject matter while I'm shuffling. And then when I start to give the messages, you can apply those messages to that situation as best you can. I will be talking about the reading and talking about the cards as if I was reading for the week ahead, but you can easily apply it to a situation if that's what you have going on in your life right now. So I will be using, as always, dropping the cards. I will be using, as always, 3 card positions. So I use energy, obstacle, and advice. It's my favorite go-to for general spreads like this, and I really enjoy that because it gives me 2 upright positions. The energy and the advice will be looking at the card in its upright or positive light aspect. And the center position, the obstacle, is when we sort of look at the more shadowy side of the card meaning. So it gives us an opportunity to look at light and shadow, and you'll get a chance to see how the deck reads, and then we'll take a look at how the guidebook reads and chat a little bit at the end. All right, so I'm going to give it a couple more shuffles, and then we're going to get right into the reading. All right, let's see what we have. Energy of the week, Ace of Wands. I'm going to zoom us in just a bit. Obstacle, 3 of Coins. And advice, the Sun. This reminds me of the Dark Crystal, just the shape of this figure. All right. So intuitively speaking, when we're looking at the Ace of Wands as the energy of the week, we're looking at sort of a burst of inspiration or a creative impulse. Something is going to come out of the blue or strike our fancy in a way that just captures our attention. The wand suit in general for me has to do with sort of creative impulse, but also passion, drive, impulse, the sort of fiery energies that move us forward or that instigate ideas that lead to action, often creatively or from a more feeling driven perspective. So not so much emotion, but feeling and experiencing. The wands are definitely a very experiencing suit. And so when we think of the energy of the Ace of Wands for our week, that tells me that we're going to be really feeling something. We're going to be pulled towards something. We're going to have that moment of spark or of attraction to a project, an idea, or a person that's going to really just capture our attention. Ace of Wands can indicate like that moment of pure possibility. And that's true with all of the aces, but the wands sort of is that possibility that feels almost magical and exciting. And so that's a really fun energy to be going into the week ahead with. When we look at the obstacle of the week, we have the Three of Coins, and thinking of this card in its shadowy aspect, the coins is our suit that deals with responsibility and material things or abundance, our finances, and our wealth in all its forms. And when we have the Three of Coins, we often see multiple figures actually on this card, and we get this energy of almost collaboration or taking the time to really think through what it is we need to do and how we need to do it. There's a good amount of, I'd say, very kind of mundane planning to this card. Sometimes we'll see people working on a building or trying to put in a stained glass window or something along those lines. And that really speaks to the energy of being slow and cautious, but moving projects forward. But when we're looking at the Three of Coins in a shadowy position and we're thinking of how might that energy be blocked or how might that energy be an obstacle, I really think of the Three of Coins in this particular aspect. We see this figure kind of thinking about these three coins and what does he want to do next? And I kind of get this feeling of almost being frozen. Like, you ever try to make a decision and you feel like you just can't, like you're afraid to make the wrong move, so you don't make any move. And I feel like the real obstacle we're going to butt up against this week is overthinking the problem a little bit and perhaps either feeling like we don't have any help so we don't move forward, or maybe being a little bit too cautious with how to move forward, trying to have it be too perfect, and that's what holds us back. So be aware this week that you're probably going to bump up against this kind of frozen feeling, like you're stuck and you can't quite figure out how to piece things together. And since this figure is by himself, I would say that might be a really good indication to ask for help or get some outside perspective into the situation, because chances are good you've gotten a little too tunnel visioned and you're really not seeing what you need to see in order to make your way towards more steady progress in this particular area. And finally, we have our advice card and we have the Sun. The Sun is very much, to me personally, about authenticity and about, in some ways, vulnerability and really just being yourself and letting your joy shine out, or embracing your joy. Excuse me. I really think in this case we have somebody who's sort of blanketed in the sun, and you get this idea that almost they've fully embraced and stepped into positivity. I have a feeling that with the Ace of Wands being such a high energy, kind of like exciting, like almost distractible kind of energy, and the Three of Coins being this kind of stuckness, that in order to see your way out of this and really get the fullness of the experience that the Ace of Wands could be promising you, you're going to really need to stay true to yourself. I think it's going to be important to really be in the light of your own inner knowing and really lean into that and let that be your guiding light. Sometimes when we're in this sort of stuck place, it's because we're worried a little too much about what other people might think, or we're thinking a little bit too much about what the process should look like. Whereas the Sun is often about just going your own way, like doing it in a way that feels right, that fills you up, because when you're on the right path, when you're going about something the right way for you, it feels good typically, right? So really let your feelings be your guide and look for those sparks of joy to help move you through this stuckness that you may be feeling. So that is how I would interpret those three cards from an intuitive place. We're going to take a look now at the guidebook and take a look at all three cards in the guidebook and see if we get any more insights, or if maybe these meanings disagree with my reading, or maybe there's something I hadn't thought about that comes through. And this is very much, you guys, the way that I read for myself. I don't know that I've really talked about that a lot, but I love reading guidebooks, and I really enjoy doing my own intuitive interpretation and then going to the guidebook to get further tidbits, insights, see what jumps out at me, see what agrees or disagrees, and letting that be a layer in the way that I read for myself. And I don't always do that, but I do that pretty often. So let's take a peek first at the Ace of Wands. So here's our wands. Here we are. Some of my nicknames for this card: the Big Bang, the Spark, which I literally said, that's awesome, the Genesis of life. This is where the universe starts, sure. It is the fool who strolls endlessly around the edges of the zero, tracing infinity and representing the end, the beginning, the end, and so on. But truly, the Ace of Wands is something from nothing, a sudden bloom of life, fire brought to the earth people. This card represents brand new ideas, light bulb moments, breakthroughs, sudden realizations. It is a card of great potential, but if the spark is to grow into a flame, it needs attention and sacrifice. In almost every mythological system all over the world, there is the story of a group of earth creatures going up into the sky to retrieve fire and bring it down. It takes a lot of effort and experimentation, and usually there are some minor burns involved. In this card, Peony is illustrated a grounded fire, a wand planted in a pot, the metaphor being that this seed should be planted and nurtured in order to grow, that this bright jolt of inspiration must be transferred into material world plans, which ties into our Three of Pentacles, in order to grow. If its energy is to be utilized to achieve true personal change. This is not to say that daydreaming and whimsy don't have their place in life. Surely they do. But if the profound and potent energy of the Ace of Wands is to grow roots, it needs proper care. Ace of Wands could be the beginning of something great, something significant, or it could flicker and fade. The choice is yours. Oh, that's so good. I love that. And this is, again, one of the reasons I love working with guidebooks so much, because there's often some really juicy stuff in here. I love the way this talked about how you have that spark or that inspiration or that idea, but you need to plant it in the earth, and that's where the plans come in. That's where you sort of ground it, and okay, you've got the idea. What now? And our obstacle tells us we could get hung up in this space. So let's see what the Three of Coins has to say in the guidebook. Oh, I went right to it. Perfect. Now this is the shadowed position, so I'm going to read just the reversed position in this case, just for the sake of time. So here's what it says about the Three of Coins reversed. Maybe loosen your grasp. Maybe forgive others and yourself for shortcomings. Three of Coins reversed is sometimes a headache of expectation. Yes, that's what I was saying, that worrying too much about what other people think, being overly perfectionist. Okay, anyway, back to this. A boredom, a self-centeredness. I see this card most frequently where teamwork has been abandoned and the querent may take oneself to be the most important part of a complicated puzzle. Remember, everything we ever accomplish is accomplished with help and oversight of others. We are never alone. I think that worked so beautifully with what I got from this card intuitively. Let's take a look finally now at our advice for the week, which is the Sun. And here we have our Sun card. Keywords: joy, optimism, vitality. Gemstones are sunstone, golden apatite, and herbs are chamomile and sunflower. There's a feeling, and I know you know it. That feeling is lying blissful in the sun, half asleep and drifting, warm and full of light, slipping happily between worlds. Maybe you last had it in childhood. Maybe you've only ever heard mention of it. Maybe, if you're lucky, you just had that feeling recently. Whatever the case, that feeling is contained here, wrapped up in golden paper like a luminous gift, reflecting light upon the monster's happy upturned face, symbolized by the blazing image resting golden on its back, which illuminates its spine. The sun is a symbol of the return to rightness, not righteousness, just rightness. The knowledge that everything in the world is in order. Even in its chaos, its brutality, its loneliness, there is still this vast sense of golden trust that can exist. No coincidence that in alchemical practices, the sun is connected with the human heart. That battery that fills us with electric power, with the will to do good works, with strength and with life. When the sun comes up in our readings, a whole new world is dawning around us. The message here is that we can always choose happiness. Nelson Mandela once said, "Live your life as though nobody is watching and express yourself as if everyone is listening." That is the message of the sun. Humility, innocence, trust, and joy, but also confidence, belief in oneself, virtue, and pride. You are good enough, you are good enough, and the rays of the sun sing this song as they fall upon you. Oh my God, you guys, this guidebook is so beautifully written. And it just reminds me of why I love this deck so much. Because again, I very rarely work with my decks in a vacuum. I almost always work with them with the guidebook. And this has so much beautiful messaging in it. And I'm sure I've talked about it on my channel in a weekly deck review before, but it has been some time since I've worked with it. And this was such a joy. thank you so, so much for hanging out with me for Tarot by the Book. As always, I really enjoy hearing your feedback in the comments below about how the reading resonates for you. Sometimes you may not know until you get a little nearer to the end of your week and you see how everything played out. If you did this reading for a particular situation, you might have an idea right now what the messages are for you and what you're meant to hear. But I really enjoy this series. Again, it is one of the highlights of my week, and I love being able to do these readings for the collective. It's just a fun thing that I get to do on my channel, and one of the things that I love about being on YouTube. So thank you for hanging out with me and participating, because without you guys, I would just be talking into empty space. So thank you so, so much. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you hit the little notification bell, you will get a little notification letting you know when I've uploaded a video or when I do my lives. Sometimes those lives are somewhat spontaneous, so be sure and click that little bell. And if you would like to book a personal reading with me, you can do that over at www.supportivetarot.com. Thanks again so much, you guys, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!